And here we go. Digital Adele back with another Hoops Profile Beyond the Backboard podcast for you with my co-host, Matt Hanifan. Now, Matt, I normally would ask you how you're doing and get into it. Before we do, I want to get into the title. And the title of today's show is the 2025 NBA Combine. Does size matter? It's the age-old question that everybody's been asking for centuries. And we're going to answer it today.
Hey, listen, to some people it may, to some it may not.
And in this context of the 2025 NBA draft, I agree wholeheartedly that it may. And we're going to talk about the heights, weights, length, hand size, width of all these things, Matt Hanifan. And by all these things, I mean wingspan, hand size. What were you guys thinking out there, audience?
Yeah, get your minds out of the gutter.
Oh, my God.
No,
But anyway, Matt, you've done something above and beyond, as Matt Hanifan always does. He does his homework. I, myself, a terrible student, unless it's of the game. I didn't do any homework, and I wing it. I do all my research, as always. I've seen all these heights, weights, measurements. One thing I'm really disappointed with is they stopped doing the body fat like 3 years ago. I don't know why. But it actually is something that is in my profile of archetypes. It's pretty important to me to differentiate players, and I don't know why they stopped doing the body fat. It's actually got its own column on NBA.com, but it's been blank for the past 3 years. But anyway, tell the people, Matt, about your homework that you've done.
Well, what I did was I just quickly jotted down, a handful of players that were bigger than I thought they were in terms of like just the height. I know when they list these heights, they do it without shoes. Basketball isn't played without shoes, so you give or take, inch and a half for most of these guys in terms of their height on the court. We know how colleges work sometimes, how they like to, bump their own guys, an inch or two when it comes to the heights, like listed on their profiles when you click on them. And so like, this is like the true test of how tall some of these guys are. And there were a couple of them where I was looking at it just based on what, they did last week or whenever the combine was. Time is a myth to me at this point.
Time is just
some of these guys were bigger than I thought they were. One of those guys is going back to school, Boogie Fland. We'll talk about that in a little bit. He came in at 6'2", and so you can assume, 6'3", 6'3 and a half on the court. I didn't necessarily think he was that big. If I probably would have guessed like 6'1" without shoes, or roughly 6'1" without shoes. And so when he came in at 6'2", that surprised me a little bit. Another one was Will Riley. He came in, I think it was, I'm looking at it here, 6'8" and a quarter. I never really thought he was 6'9".
Doesn't play like it.
Yeah, he didn't play like it. And so that was one that was a little bit surprising to me. Another one, Grant Nelson, he came in at 6'10" exactly, I think. And again, I never really thought I knew he was big. Obviously, he's one of the bigger players on the court, but 6'11", 7 foot, like I never really thought.
Future Sioux Falls Dynamo.
Yeah. And then one that I put as a joke was Ace Bailey. He came in 6'7" and a half. I know he was.
So he wasn't 5'9" like you thought?
Yeah, no, not 5'9". It was I think it was Zach Lowe who said that like it was either Lowe or someone said that a lot of people were paying attention to his measurement because of the very thing that I thought. Maybe not that he was quite 5'9", but that he was shorter than some people, indicated. Right. Was there anyone to you that like looked bigger than you initially thought, just based on height? Or
so there's a few things in this conversation that I wanted to nuance a little bit.
Okay.
One, actual height isn't as important to me. One of the things with Rob Dillingham last year that we pointed out was he was historically small, but didn't have anything to do with just his height.
Sure.
It was his weight, it was his wingspan, it was his hand size. Like those were all the things that we identified that I was really concerned more about. Now, I'll say some of the international guys are some big mofos.
Yeah.
Like Rocco Zakarski, I scouted him late in the process. I liked what I saw from him. He came in at 7'3" without shoes.
Yep.
Like that's really, really tall. We already knew Kalkbrenner was tall.
Dude, I have him. I did another one for like biggest winners for measurements. I have 5. He was one of the few that I left off, but
Yeah.
he's just like 7'1", clocked in with the 7'6" wingspan. What was it?
His
9'4" standing reach. Like
his
crazy.
hands are enormous as well.
Yeah,
his hands are slightly smaller than like Zach Eady's, like by about an inch on the length of it because of his fingertips aren't as long, but the like width of his hand, he's got some big mitts, man. He might actually end up being a player that's in the league for like 12, 15 years as a backup center.
Oh yeah.
Because of his ability to block shots, that length, his ability to shoot. But another thing, when we keep talking about these international guys, like Hansen Young from China, the biggest hands in the entire draft, legit 7'1".
Yep.
You know, but his wingspan's only 7'2". Standing reach though, just as long as Kalkbrenner's because he has the big mitts.
Yep.
Who else stood out? Vlad Golden's a big dude. He's not technically international. I mean, he's Russian, but he played in college at Michigan. Everybody's favorite flash in the from the combine was Yannick. He's a legit 6'11" guy, big wingspan, 7'3.5". A guy that, even though his measurements were good, I still think he's not an NBA player, and that's Michael Ruzek. Unless you're like a draft and stash for like 2 or 3 years away, But
that would have been a thing in 2015, not now.
Correct, but that's what I mean. I don't think he's an NBA player by today's standards. What's funny? They list Danny Wolf small forward through power forward on this list, but he really would
I did notice
small forward through center technically, because he's 7 foot. He came in at 6'10" without shoes, but it's 7'2" wingspan. Now, let me ask you: did you do anything with wingspan or just heights?
No, I kind of combined it all when I did just my biggest winners for measurements.
Okay, so let me go with this. I think Thomas Sorber for me is one of the biggest winners from this because he's only 6'10", 6'9" and a quarter is what he came in at. But he's got a 7'6" wingspan.
Yep. He was one of my winners.
Oh my gosh, dude. Now he has some of the smallest hands for a center in the draft, though. He's got 8.5 inch long hands, not very long, and 9-inch width. That's a full inch shorter than like Malowacz, Kalkbrenner, Golden, even Yaxel Lindenborg. But anyway, he's got small hands for a center.
And it's kind of surprising because he had such good hands when he played.
Well, because they're so strong.
Right.
Like he's got really strong hands. And that's the thing that I think the misconception some people can have. Yep. Like you can all right, full disclosure, I have small hands. Like if I was in a combine, my hands are small. One thing I learned when I was playing is that grip strength matters more than having big mitts for a guard, unless you're like Michael Jordan, because then the big mitts make a difference. Because when you're rebounding the basketball or you're controlling the ball, handling the ball, you got to be able to manipulate the ball and you got to be able to make sure nobody can tear it away from you.
Right.
And that's what really big mitts are about. When you have grip strength like Sorber has, dude clamps onto the ball.
Yeah.
Nobody else is getting it. And that's the thing about Sorber is that he's got some strong behind hands and he's just a very strong individual overall.
And that helps your catch radius.
Heck
your catch radius becomes, even though it's kind of weird because it's like his hands are smaller, but his catch radius becomes bigger because he has those strong hands. Like,
Right.
obviously, you don't want to throw like one of my pet peeves, and I know it's one of yours too, when you see like guards throw it at, a 7-footer's ankles.
Oh my God. Yeah, you
Like,
don't do that. You
yeah, you
don't-
don't do that. But like, there were times where that happened, or like you could see like a loose ball or something, and he would be the one that to gobble it up. Um,
Absolutely. He'd
because he
pin
just
the
has
ball
such
to the
strong hands.
floor.
Yeah.
Like he'd pin it to the floor. People are trying to rake it and it won't
Right,
move.
yeah.
And then he just scoops it up and scores. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, like that there's value in that. Um,
absolutely. Go ahead.
just bouncing off of that, a couple of other winners that I had, Rasheer Fleming.
Boom. I was going to talk
He
about him next.
he
Yep.
clocked in at I think it was 6'8" and a quarter. Is that what it
6'8"
was?
and a quarter. Yep.
But he had a
232
7'5"
as
wingspan.
well. But also he's 232
Right.
for a wing. Like LeBron's 250. And I'm not saying he's LeBron, but my point is he's a big dude, 232 pounds.
Didn't test well if you're just looking at the vertical. I think
Right.
his max vert was like 32. But like
Not great.
when you have such long arms and when you're as big as he is, like you may not need to have like a 35 to a 40-inch max vert.
Right.
And you could see, I don't know, it was weird because I watched a lot of Fleming over the weekend, just re-racking some of the games
Yeah,
that he
absolutely.
played during the season, and like that he had the 32-inch vert, like obviously information that we know now, but it felt like he was more athletic during games than he was at the combine, just in that
Right.
sense. Like,
Some people
there
don't
were
test
times where
well
he was
either.
just he was like very active on the glass. Like he was always around the basket for offensive rebounds, tip-ins, things of that
Right.
nature. And you could see like there was some explosion, like when he got downhill,
Yeah.
whether it was off ball or on ball, he really didn't have any rim pressure. He didn't really have any creation.
Right.
But when he was able to get downhill and around the rim, like you could see that athleticism pop, or like defensively when he was, weak side rim protection,
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
like that. Like that's where you could see the athleticism and the potential, and like you could see the length. Like that's where the length came into play.
Absolutely.
But he was definitely one of the biggest winners where it was just like, I want to say, I couldn't find it. I was trying to find it before I hopped on here, but someone on Twitter tweeted out like the longest wingspans, like relative to their height.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
and he, I think, had the
7'5",
longest.
7'5" and a quarter.
Well, no, I'm saying
Insane.
like he had the longest, like relative to his height. Like it was like a +7 wingspan.
For sure. And but what I'm saying
Or
is like for a
+9,
small
whatever.
forward, he has like the same wingspan as the centers in this draft. Like it's unbelievable, his wingspan. So yeah, he's gonna go much higher than I think people originally thought. I don't think there's any chance, and this is not to get onto a Miami Heat tangent, but there's no chance he's there at 20 for the Miami Heat.
I doubt it.
No.
Unless if it has to be something where like teams just aren't buying into the shooting.
Well,
Or
that shooting's real, dude. That dude's got a real
Well,
shot.
I'm just based on the percentages, like he was a 31% three-point shooter his first 2 years and then leaped to 39. Like if a team
Yeah.
has any apprehension about
Right.
that carrying over, which I don't presume
He
that
put in
happens.
so much work though. Like you can see
Yeah.
mechanically like how much better his
Yeah.
shot has gotten.
But
But I agree with you. Let me ask you in reverse of that, because one of the biggest losers of the entire combine process was Cam Jones. I thought his stock dropped like a rock. And you usually can't do that at the combine because your tape is your tape. It's not going to change.
Mhm.
But it confirmed a lot of stuff we thought we saw on tape. Like, how is his speed going to translate at the next level? It doesn't. And he came in smaller than I thought he would be. So Cam Jones is one of my biggest, I don't want to call them losers, but fallers, droppers, whatever you want to call them. 6'3" without shoes. We were billed that he was like 6'6".
Right, yeah.
6'3", and he's 202 pounds, little on the light side, but he's only got we thought he had super long arms. He's got a 5'6" wingspan,
Right.
which isn't super long. So like when you don't have those explosive traits and you're not as tall and you don't have the wingspan, and by the way, he's got small hands, count me out. Count me out, man. He's got 8.25-inch hands lengthwise and 8.5-inch widthwise. He's got really small hands. Is he the Dillingham of this draft class? I mean, not as high a pedigree, but he might be the watch out, stay away from guy.
I mean, okay, if you're framing it that way, maybe. But I wouldn't say he's the Dillingham. Like, obviously, he's not like 5'11" or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so like that's
right.
But in the sense that like I would, have a little bit of hesitation.
Yeah.
Like, sure, he's certainly one of them. Another one I had on here that I mean, okay, this guy he's not a faller. You and I both feel the same way about him, but he didn't test at the combine, which is a little bit weird, and I have no idea why. Con Knipple.
Yeah, that was. Oh, I know why. He was injured.
Was he injured?
Yeah, he was injured. He said so in an interview.
Okay, that I saw that and I was like, that's a little strange. Like, obviously, I guess, or at least my guess at the time was that he was injured.
Yeah, he had an injury, so he wasn't going to participate in any of the testing. He said.
I hope, obviously, that he's able to get healthy soon and test.
He did shooting. He did some shooting drills.
Yeah, he did
recently.
Shooting, he didn't do like the vert or anything like that.
No, he didn't do anything like that. That was going to cause that. I think it was an ankle. I'm 99% sure he said it was an ankle from the championship games.
Gotcha.
Whenever that took place. But Con Knipple was one of those guys that said in an interview, my school pumped up my height. He said it prior to the combine. He's like, I just want everybody to know I'm 6'5". Came into the combine, he's 6'5".
And he has he almost has a negative wingspan, or it was like a flat.
He's got 1.25 positive.
Okay.
Wingspan. He's 6'5". His wingspan is 6'6.25" for those listening and watching at home.
Yeah.
But he's 219 pounds. That's why when people were trying to railroad him, he doesn't move. He's built solid. He's got 9.75-inch hands as far as width, so he's got big mitts. I love Con Knipple's game, dude. Repeatable motion too. His shot never changes.
Oh my god, dude, it's so good.
Yeah, never changes.
Not only a repeatable shot, but like you could throw 5 pairs of hands in his face and he's not
it doesn't matter.
It's not gonna matter. Like him in late clock situations, like he would. I don't know the percentages because I don't have like Synergy or any access to that kind of data. But like it felt like he was almost as efficient as he was when he was open. Like
absolutely,
he was, whether it's off screen, spot up, whatever it is,
and his finishing around the basket too.
Huh?
Finishing around the basket too. He was never bothered going to the rim against more athletic players. Just didn't matter. He's scoring.
Now I will admit I am like one of the questions that I do have about him is like how much of that specifically around the rim will translate right away. Do I have any long-term concerns about it? No.
Right.
But in the short term, like you're not going to be going up against college bigs or at least college rim protectors. Like, like how does he look in that kind of setting, and how is he able to, like, is he going to be able to generate as much rim pressure as he did?
The foot speed is a concern.
Not necessarily off just closeouts, but just generating rim pressure, which
he's got good handles, but it's his foot speed. Like that's the question. Right.
Exactly.
I got one more winner before we go to the negative stuff. Because did you list your 5 negatives yet?
I listed Con. There's a couple others that we can brush over.
Okay, let me give you my last, because everybody's talking about Cedric Cowherd. We know he's got a 7'2" wingspan. He shoots the lights out from three, big hands, 6'5" and a quarter. Everybody's talking about Cedric Cowherd, right? So I'm not going to talk about him. We know he was a winner. My guy from Australia that I scouted really late in the process, Lachlan Ulbrich, I thought was one of the best centers at the combine scrimmages. He came in at only 6'8" and 3/4, 6'9". But here's the but. He's got 10, like some of the biggest hands in the draft. He's got a 6'11" wingspan. Mm-hmm. He's 230 pounds, 8 and 11-inch standing reach. I think this guy really, really opened some eyes to the evaluators with his measurements and his ability to just play the game better than the people on the court in front of him. He's one of those underrated international prospects. I think it's going to get taken, and people are going to be like, "Who?" Yeah, Lachlan Ulbrich. But anyway, anything else stand out to you before we get to the negatives?
I did talk about Will Riley earlier as someone who was bigger than I thought, but one of my biggest losers was Will Riley. He came in at 6'8" and a quarter, but only 6'8" and 3/4 with the wingspan.
Right.
Kobe Bray has a negative wingspan.
Oh yeah, I forgot
that's
about
a little
that.
tough. And then someone else who I don't think this will affect it doesn't really affect my thoughts on this player's potential, nor do I really have him changed on my board.
Yeah.
Asa Newell came in at 6'9" with a 6'11" wingspan.
Right. Yeah, that was actually pretty interesting to me as well. I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually really, and matter of fact, you actually reminded me of another winner, but let's talk about Asa Newell. Do those measurements, what you know about him, concern you at all?
No, but it's more surprising to me. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, I went into that week expecting him to be like 6'10"-ish.
Right.
I thought his arms were longer than they were.
Yeah.
He's
got really big hands.
It was like
though.
A crazy wingspan, but something that was just a little bit bigger than it was revealed as.
Right.
But it doesn't really change my thoughts on him as a player or his potential or anything like that. But it was just like I had a different preconceived
perception.
Notion.
Yeah, for sure.
If that makes sense.
It does. That makes a lot of sense. One other guy, while we're on the subject, Tamar Bates. I thought he had one of the best performances for somebody that nobody was talking about.
Yeah,
at the NBA.
He baptized the dude.
Dude was so good. He was so good in the combine scrimmages, and he was very competitive. He played very smart, but he's 6'3" and 3/4 with a 6'10" wingspan.
Right.
Dude's got arms for days, right? He's got, 9 and 3/4-inch hands. He's 191 pounds. He was in terrific shape. 8 foot and 9-inch standing reach. Dude was just unbelievable, under the radar type guy for me.
Mm-hmm.
I got some losers for you, and it has to do with explosiveness.
Okay.
Our guy, your favorite guy, Derek Queen.
Oh my dude, his athletic testing was awful, dude. Awful. He was like last in everything, or second to last in everything. Like
he was the worst max vert in the entire class. 28-inch max vert. The worst standing vertical leap in the entire class. 23.5. Now, his one saving grace is his ability to move a little bit, right? Like, he can move a little bit. Derek Queen, as far as... Actually, no, he's pretty bad.
I was going to say, are we sure he can move? Like,
no, the 3/4 court sprint, he was third to last.
Yeah, right.
Is that good? Where was he at? Hold on. Where was he at in the short shuttle? He's got to at least do something in the shuttle, right?
I swear I saw somewhere he was like nearly last and everything.
Oh my God, he was second to last in the short shuttle to come on Malawatch.
Malawatch can take one step and
Correct.
cover the entirety of the Pacific Ocean.
And he was dead last in the lane agility drills. I mean, is that? I'm at a loss for words. That's terrible on-air etiquette by me, but I don't know what to even say to that.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
People have him in like the top 5 in some scenarios.
It's because of the skill. That's it. That's the reason why. Not saying it's right or wrong, although I wouldn't do that, but
I wouldn't do it. Can he play defense?
No.
Can he rebound?
Maybe. Not
we don't
super
know
well relative to his peers.
Right. I don't know if he can rebound. I don't know.
Against bigger, more physical bigs. Ugh.
Dude,
I have questions.
I've got tons of questions. Colin Murray Boyles, did he do testing? Yeah, he did. I'm here to tell you, he's more athletic than Derek Queen. Not by much.
I was going to say, like, the bar that we're leaping here isn't as high as it might be higher than Derek Queen's vertical. The bar that
it is definitely the bar we're talking about might be higher. That's for sure. That's really rough. You know what we should do? We should look at some of the worst athletic testers from the 2025 draft and compare it to the 2026 draft. Like not today, but like a different episode.
I thought you were going to say like compare it to other like really bad ones historically.
Well, but for the worst draft class ever, you know what I mean? People were considering it the worst draft class ever, which we didn't think it was. There may be some insight here. Maybe.
Perhaps.
Who do you think has a higher vertical? Quentin Post or Derek Queen?
Probably Post.
Not Post. Derek Queen by a little bit. Donovan Klingeth or Derek Queen? Who has a higher vertical? Max vertical.
I was going to say it. I remember it being similar.
It's Donovan Klingeth by 1 inch.
Okay, I was going to say.
But who runs the quarter court sprint faster?
Oh, God. Is it Klingon?
It's Donovan Klingeth by like 11/10 of a second. It's quite a bit. Yeah, Derek Queen's got to be mobile if he's going to be successful in the NBA. I just don't see it.
And again, there's something that you and I have pointed out. Considering he doesn't have the foot speed, like it's better laterally for him than it is north-south. It's still not good.
Right.
But if he's going to be a drop defender at the NBA level, he's not big enough to take up enough space. That means he has to be like, he has to have the wherewithal. He has to have like his hands are probably his best trait.
Right.
When it comes, but like he doesn't take up as much space as other like really good drop bigs. Like
Last
that's
one
I mean,
for you.
not to bring it back to the Heat like we always do. That's what makes Bam Adebayo such a special defender.
Oh, he's
6'9".
unbelievable.
He's classified as an undersized big, and yet he excels at every single defensive coverage. Derek Queen doesn't. He only really like performed in one single coverage when he wasn't hiding in one of the wings or in the middle
or
of
that zone.
Yeah. And it wasn't the best because he was having to move north-south. He's smaller than the average center, and he's just not quick enough.
Derek Queen's lane agility time, which is the lateral stuff you talked about he's going to need, was worse than Donovan Klingeth.
Yeah.
How's that going to work out in the NBA?
There's a lot of centers that come into the NBA who have to figure it out defensively.
Yeah.
Like, that'll take time, but I have a
I don't
hard
see
time
it.
with it just because he's not as big
Right.
nor as quick relative to everyone else. Like, it's not like Nikola Jokic, who he's like 7'1" or
Right.
whatever, or not, maybe not 7. Maybe that's a little bit of an over exaggeration of how big
But we
Nikola
know, right.
Jokic.
He's really big and he's really like wide. Like,
Right. And he's also, for him to be considered a decent defender, he had to go through years and years and years of work while also being the most gifted offensive center that we may have ever seen. Like,
right. His processing
for
is
him to get any
unbelievable.
sort of like notoriety.
Yeah.
Um, I have one more like mini game for you before I have to
Do
go.
it.
So this we players have until tomorrow. We're recording this on Tuesday, May 27th. They have until tomorrow to go back to college, or at least college players. International players have a little bit of a longer period of time. There have been players that have put their names or taken their names out of the portal, or not
Right.
out of the portal, out of the draft to go back to college, whether they're in the portal or not. Just a few of the ones. Milos Uzan was one that happened today. Darian Williams, Mackenzie McBako, Yexel Lendenborg, who actually had really good measurements at the combine. He's going to Michigan. He transferred there. Alex Condon was another big one that happened today. Isaiah Evans, Boogie Flynn, PJ Haggerty. There's a few that I wrote down that I want to get your like just gut reaction of whether they go back or not.
Okay.
First one I have is Miles Bird. Stay or go?
Stays.
Tahad Pettiford. Stays or goes?
Oh, that one's so tough. I think he goes back to school because I don't think he's going to get drafted in the top 15. And I think that's where he views himself as a prospect, is a top 15 type of guy. And I don't think he gets drafted in the top 15.
Otega Owe.
Stays. Should go back to school, though, but I think he stays.
Jameer Watkins.
Stays.
I'm not going to try to pronounce this guy's last name, but Unique, the guy that we just talked about from
Penn State. Unique goes back to school, without a doubt.
I'm trying to see if there's any other ones. Those were the 5 that were on my list. I'm trying to see if there's any like other ones that
let me elaborate on some of the things you said while you're looking that up. Jameer Watkins, I think he really showed his ability to defend at an NBA level. And I really think that him going back to school, there isn't much he's going to be able to do to change how the league perceives him. I think he's checked all the boxes they're going to need to see where they're going to look to draft him. And next year, it's going to be just as tough. I don't think he's going to be able to improve his stock to where he's like climbing up into the first round. You know what I mean? But I think Jameer's made himself the ability to get drafted in the second round. I really do.
But the counterpoint to that is NIL.
That's true.
And that's how it is for all of these guys.
That's
I know.
True. That's a
Miles
good
Bird isn't in the portal. So I think you'd just be going back to San Diego State. But for like Pettiford, for Owe, for Watkins,
Pettiford, I think definitely goes back because,
like
I said,
a lot
like
of NIL.
To me, like I think he has the ability to be one of these like surprise players for like a franchise that's like this guy could be an all-star. I really do. Like when we talk about measurables, 42-inch max vert, like unreal for his size. But I think he views himself more as a top 15 player. And if he goes back to school, gets the NIL bag, and then is the starter, because he didn't start for a whole season with Keyshawn Hall, I think they could both make themselves a lot of money in future NBA drafts. So I think he goes back to school.
I keep forgetting that Keyshawn's there.
Oh, I can't wait for
that's gonna be fun. Like just for selfish reasons.
Yes.
If he goes back. I don't know. I think I'm kind of like, I think Bird stays. I think Owe goes back. I think Watkins goes back.
I don't know. So, but let me ask you a question. Unless it's strictly NIL money, what could a Tega Owe do to improve his draft stock? Because I think he's at his ceiling for where he's going to get drafted because he can handle the ball. People know that. He's a dog defender. People know that. He'll rebound.
Yeah.
His offense is going to be a struggle. I mean, unless he really thinks he can improve his offense that much, I don't see a reason for him to go back outside of the NIL.
But I think NIL is such a big part
Yeah.
of why some of these players do actually go back. And like, remember,
Right.
he's at a blue blood program. I think that to answer your question, though, I think it's the 3-point shooting. Like, he shot, he's been mid-30s each of the last couple of years on low volume. Like, if he ups that volume a little bit, I just think that would be more conducive.
I think if he ups his volume, it's going to go down. His shot's not
It
great.
could.
Yeah,
but I'm just great. Like, I think that would be like he wants to prove it on higher volume.
True. That's a good point.
In an offense and in a system, like Mark Pope preaches that kind of analytic style. Yeah. Just for the perspective, 35.5% on 2.1 attempts, 11.5 attempts in general, 49% from the floor. He averaged 16 points.
Right.
He was an all SEC player. So you're right. Like, there isn't a whole lot to prove, and he would be another year older.
Right.
But I think the NIL is such a big part of it.
Money talks.
If he can just improve his overall, like, all around offensive game.
Right.
I think I think that would be his ticket. But
no, makes a lot of sense. You raise a lot of valid points, Matt. With that, did you want to cover some of the notable guys who have gone back to school?
I have to bounce in just a second.
Oh, let's wrap it up, dude. You got to let me know these things, man. Yeah, no worries. So we know Alex Condon went back to school. I'll just go through the list and do it from memory, even though my memory's chalk. Alex Condon went back to school. Let's see who else. Boogie Flan went back to school. Let's see who else do we have here.
Darian Williams.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Darian Williams. Carter Knox. That's one I didn't expect. I didn't expect him to go back to school. I like Carter Knox and his potential. He's got a lot of refining left to do, so I understand. Take that NIL money and run to the bank. But really, that's the most notable guys. PJ Haggerty went back to school. And that's
State.
Kansas State. And then, of course, the big one, which somebody on Twitter told me he was a clear number one pick or first round pick. Yaxel Lindenborg went back to school.
Mm-hmm.
Clear number one pick, Matt Hanifan? Wait. Hold on. But where do you fall? Clear number one pick? Not number one pick, first round pick.
Probably not. I would. It's more of like a 50-50. Like, I could see a team
maybe
25 through 30 being like, look at how productive that guy was on both ends of the floor.
Right. True. Very true. But he didn't really profile as a big. Like, when I watched him play, he didn't really look like a big in the NBA. So he'd really profile more as a wing at the next level. His athletic profile, like his max vert's not great, but he is versatile. He's a big body. I could get it, but I had him 45th on my big board. I thought he was going in the second round.
Wow.
I didn't think he was going to go in the first. There was a lot of things we talked about. If he was going to play the wing in the NBA for that lack of athletic profile, how upright he plays, he was going to struggle defensively, having to guard wings. I mean, he'd be able to, switch a lot and guard bigs as you went because he's such a big body. But I just think there are a lot of things people weren't paying attention to with how he moves and how he plays to where he's such a tweener that I think he was a second round guy. And that's why I think ultimately he went back because he didn't get a first round guarantee from any of the execs. That's my opinion. Money talks, dude. Get that NIL bag. I'm not mad at you. But that's it, guys. Matt Hanifan has to go. I got to go. Thank you for stopping by. Matt, where can the people find you, follow you, and get more of your work so we can get up out of here?
You can find me at MPH_824_ on Twitter. You can find me at vendettasportsmedia.com, hotonhoops.com, and mountainwestconnection.com. We're finally getting profiles up. I already have, I think, 4 of them out.
Nice.
We're churning them out. But yeah, man, that's where you can follow me. I'm everywhere. I'm doing a lot of things for a lot of different people, including on playback.tv/hoops profile, which we're at right now.
Right now. And I think Say Less D's lurking in the chat finally as well. Thanks for stopping by. But yeah, that's it for us today. We've answered the age-old question, does size matter? And the answer is yes. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. See you next time.